Go.
We are here at the Johnson Studio, located at 401 Columbia Street in Helena, Arkansas. West Helena, Arkansas, in Phillips County. We're here for a very special occasion. We're videotaping three legends of Phillips County that are part of our exhibit. A photographic legacy, looking good, a traveling photography exhibit featuring 70-plus black and white images of the Arkansas Delta by the Helena photographer Rogeline Johnson Sr. This project is supported in part by funds from the Arkansas Humanities Council and the National Endowment for the Humanities, Incorporated. It is locally sponsored by the E.C. Morris Foundation, Incorporated, in cooperation with the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff Art Department and University Museum, where Henry Linton is the museum director. I am Phyllis Y. Hammonds, project coordinator for this endeavor, representing the E.C. Morris Foundation, and Dr. Henrietta Williams is the executive director and fiscal coordinator for this project. This is our second exhibit. During our first exhibit 10 years ago, we researched over thousands of photographs of 25,000 black and white images of Rogeline Johnson. And in that process, we discovered several baseball negatives of Negro baseball players who played in Phillips County. At that time, we didn't know much about who was in those photographs. But we did realize that in the 50s and the 60s, there were several baseball teams. And for this endeavor, our second exhibit, You Looking Good, we decided to do further research to find the stories behind those individuals in those photographs. What we did discover that when we learned from elders in our community, that some of these individuals were still alive and lived in the Arkansas Delta. And today, we have three of those individuals. We're going to hear their stories about baseball in the Arkansas Delta. We're going to learn how they got involved, who they played with, and most important, we want them to describe the times in the Arkansas Delta when they played. One of our men today is a legend in the fact that he was a professional baseball player from the Arkansas Delta, and he was one of the first to play with the Chicago White Sox, and boy, does he has a story. So at this particular time, we're going to ask that Steve Johnson, the youngest son and the gatekeeper of the wonderful images of Rogeline Johnson, talk about his father and how his father was actively involved in the community, as well as taking some of the most wonderful photographs of the Arkansas Delta.
Hi, I'm Steve Johnson. I'm the son of Rogeline Johnson, the photographer here. And we're here to discuss some of his photographs that he made back in the 50s and the 60s. And I guess at this point we're discussing the baseball team. We have the Helena Ravens, some of the members from the ball team here today. They're going to give their opinions on what was going on in the days and how it was to play baseball back in the 50s and the 60s. My dad, he photographed a lot of events around town. Anything from baseball games to weddings to funerals to high school graduations and just everyday life right here in the Arkansas Delta. Our archives contain over 25,000 negatives from the 52 to 1971. Over 25,000 negatives in the archives. We've probably looked at this point maybe 3,000, so we know that there are still treasures back there to be found. It is a history of our area, and it's something that I'm very proud of, something very proud to have. And also, we have here today, we have my mom, Mrs. Ludy Johnson, and she's going to be here to give a perspective on what it was like to be with one of the most famous guys in town, one of the photographers in town who recorded the history here. And she's here, and she's going to give her opinions on him and what life was like then. Also, my sisters are here, Janice, and maybe Kathy will get a chance if she gets a chance to have her interview today. Insights on what it was like to be the family members of Rogeline Johnson. Okay. In my hand here, I have one of the images from the exhibit. This is the baseball team, the Helena Ravens. I could speak a little bit about it, but we have some gentlemen here who know a little bit more about it than I do. They are actually featured in this portrait. But I do want to say, when I saw this, I knew that this was a piece of history that needed to be recorded. Information had to be found out about it. And like I say, we have some people here who know a little bit more about this than I do. Who you are?
Well, you're holding a historic photograph there, and tell everybody who you are and where you are on the photograph.
I am James Bell III. I am here, one of the youngest Helena Ravens with this team. I played baseball really all my life, ever since I was about 6 years old. And we always would hear about baseball, but we never did have anyone that we could look up to until I heard of a young man named Ollie Brantley. Ollie Brantley. And, you know, that just sent chills through your body when you finally found out that, hey, we had some black folks up in the league to play some ball too. So I just wanted to be like Ollie Brantley. And here he is. I can put my hands on him. I had dealings with it. And he has taught me a lot, from playing baseball on into refereeing. So I'll let Ollie talk a little bit.
I never played with the team here in Helena. At that time, I was away playing professional baseball. I'm quite older than these young men here. I did start out in Lexi, in a small town out Southland, they called, and a man by the name of Henry Roach had a team in 1948. I guess I was about 15 then. They called it Southland Sluggers. That's where I first got started. And after I started out there, I started attending high school over in Eliza Miller, up in the hollow over the old Eliza Miller. So we didn't have a baseball team, but they had a softball team. And I was a pretty good ball player at that time, and a man by the name of Elton Hammonds, he had seen me out, and he said to me one day, he said, young man, where you from? I told him I was from Southland. And he took a lot of interest in me about playing sports. He said, you got a lot of talent. I said, yeah. And then he said, I'm going to see that I'm going to get you ready when you finish school, once you go to Pine Bluff College. And I told him, I said, well, I'd love to go there. And he kind of just took me under his wing, you know, being a boy from out in the country. We didn't have that much, you know. My dad was a sharecropper. And I just played baseball out there, but didn't have a baseball team at the high school. So during the summer, I would play baseball with a man by the name of Bo Change in West Helena. He was down there in, I guess, a little honky-tonk place like where they sold beer or whatever. But he'd have me pitching. He'd give me maybe 50 cents or a dollar or something to come and play. But it wasn't with this team. It was a semi-pro team at that time. And that's where I got started in baseball. And then later, the night I was going to graduate, they had a man come from the Memphis Red Sox, the Negro League. And during that time in the White League, they wasn't letting any blacks in to play. They said it was discrimination, you know, you couldn't play. And this man came up and he was talking to me, and I said, well, I don't know, I'm planning on trying to go to college. So Mr. Hammonds told me and said, look, that's a good opportunity for you, son. You know, I'd always ally with him. He'd always advise me like a mentor. He said, you go ahead. You might be one of baseball one day. You might be a famous man. So I played 3 years with the Memphis Red Sox, the Negro League, and they started signing black ball players in the White League. So, you know, they signed Jackie Robinson in 1948, and he went to the Dodgers. They just did few up at that time. So, and I know they was scouting me, and I always relied on Mr. Hammond about what to do. He said, if they want to sign you, you got to go ahead and sign you. So the White Sox purchased my contract from the Memphis Red Sox. I don't know what kind of terms they got, but they got a lot of money for us at that time. But they gave me a bonus of $5,000, but an incentive bonus, you know, to sign with them. So when I signed with them, they sent me to their farm club up in Wisconsin. And I got up in Wisconsin where no black people lived at all. So they had a storage house outside, you know, for me to live. They had 8 teams in the league, and every town we go in, they had that storage house. So I'd be in there, and I would just didn't know what to do, you know. Every morning I'd wake up, there'd be about 150 kids waiting for me to get up and come outside, and they'd be looking and say, what is he? He look like we is. He got arms and stuff. They say, well, he black. What is wrong with him? So the landlady said he colored. And they said, well, why don't they wash him up? You know, why he black like this? They don't burn him and all this. You know, they just backing up. They say, shake hands with him. They just backing up with me. And she said, he colored. But man, there's a lot of pressure on me. You know, I didn't really know if I was going to stay or not. But Mr. Hammond always, I'd call him, he'd tell me, say, stay, you know, stay on, you know. But the big brass or the White Sox, you know, they would be there when I pitched. And I couldn't play with them during the day, either work out with them. I had to work out with the manager. And the manager was discouraging me, you need to go back and play in the black league. It was just too tough for you up here. And I wouldn't say nothing, I didn't know what to say. But when I pitched, you know, the brass would come to Chicago, and they would be there, and they'd holler, don't let that black boy, don't let that nigga, don't let him strike you out, don't do this, and all this. And they were swinging at any ball I throw, some over the head, some in the dirt. So I struck out 20 and 21 men. So that made me a superstar, like, as far as they're concerned. But the manager, he was telling me all the time that I didn't need to be there. So he finally broke down one day. He called me in the office. He said, Brantley, he said, you know what? If you wasn't a better ball player than anybody here, you wouldn't be here. So those are the kind of things I had to go through with. And, it's just something. So that's why I'm trying to encourage the black kids to come back out to baseball. You know, they have left baseball. But basketball and football, because it's real popular. But baseball is the easiest sports to get to the major leagues in, you know, baseball, because you can be 120 pounds, you can run and hit, you'll be all right. But in football, you ain't 190, a running back, or 203, as a lineman, you ain't got a chance. And out of 1,000 players, you see about 2 makes it to the pros. In baseball, you got a chance. In basketball, it's the same. You got to be 6'9", or 6'10", or 6'8". If you're 6'3" or 6'4", you got to be real creative. You got to be like almost a superstar to make it. So that's why I'm encouraging our black ball players to come back. But that's what all we knew when I was a boy was baseball. We didn't know about no basketball and football back in the day. Everybody had a stick and a ball.
Well, Mr. Brantley, who was sitting there beside you?
Mr. Gaines, he's one of the younger men I used to adore when I was coming up. He had such a talent. He officiating and everything. I was a lot older than him, and I got a chance to officiate some games with him, but I couldn't keep up with him. And then he always tell me, now you get over here, you know, the game didn't change. He's a good mentor too with me, even though I was older than him. And I thought he was one of the better referees that I officiated with, Mr. Gaines.
Mr. Gaines, tell us, you're on that picture there, and show everybody who you are, and tell us what your role was with the Helena Ravens. And
here I am right here. I was, first of all, started out with Bo Change. Most of us can remember. And I don't even know his last name.
Summerall.
Summerall,
Yeah.
okay, so somebody told me that. But we all call him Bo Change. And I started off outside of the park, shagging. They'd foul tip a ball out of the park, and we would get the ball and bring it back to them. They'd give us a quarter for each ball we brought back. And one day we got creative. We decided we're going to keep all the balls and make them raise the price that they were giving us for the balls to bring back in the park. So we made them start to give us 50 cents for each foul ball we brought back. And pretty soon, I started to play. And I was the first baseman on the center fielder. And there was about 3 of us kids in school, in high school, who played with older guys, because we didn't have the Babe Ruth League. We didn't have all the small
League,
groups
yeah.
playing. In fact, we played with a can and a stick. We just loved to play. But anyway, I started to play with these guys, and I got better by just watching them. Nobody ever taught me how to hit. Nobody ever taught me how to run the bases. I had to watch them and learn from their movement. Ollie was always kind of my idol. I saw him as a basketball player in high school. I thought he was one of the best basketball players I'd ever seen, next to Joseph Davis at Eliza Miller. And I watched him as a baseball player. It's the only person I'd ever seen throw a curveball. I said, can't anybody throw a curveball? But Ollie Randley, June Corbin, and a man named Snoop, they could actually throw curveballs. So after Bo Chance went off the scene, we can see Doris Lee here, who's our manager with the Ravens. He had a baseball team, and most of us were high school players who played with the Ravens at that time. But I can remember at age 14 in West Helena, I went to New York on a harvest with Mr. John Henry Williams. And while in New York picking beans, I promised the Lord if he'd let me get back to West Helena, I would go out for baseball, I would play football, I would play basketball, anything that I could do to get me out of West Helena. And so I was highly motivated. And these people were my idol, but I was motivated to play sports. And baseball was really one of those sports that kind of gave me a jump start into basketball, into football, and but I have to give credit to Ollie Brandley. We used to meet Ollie Brandley at Askew Barbershop in West Helena, Arkansas. On Sunday mornings, I would go get my hair cut because I knew that's when Ollie would be there. And I would sit there and just listen to Ollie talk about his experiences with the Memphis Red Sox. And I said, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. I want to be a professional baseball player. Well, I ended up getting a football scholarship, but I worked in Kansas City at a country club, Blue Hills Country Club, where the owner of the Kansas City Athletics was a member of the Blue Hills Country Club. He invited me to come out to that camp. I went out to that camp, and he offered me a chance to go and play in the minor leagues for the Kansas City Athletics before they moved to Oakland. I made the team, but I couldn't sign a contract because I was on a football scholarship at Philander Smith College in Little Rock, Arkansas. And in those days, if you signed any professional contracts, you lose your amateur status. So that's kind of how baseball introduced me to other sports. So I ended up going to college on a football scholarship. And Ollie and I have always been friends. And when I left playing baseball, he was refereeing, and the same thing with Bill. We all, sports have just given us all kinds of opportunities, and we feel like we ought to give something back.
Well, I want to take y'all back a little bit more because what I found interesting was that my father, who was Elton Hemmons, talked about the different places where you played. So, Mr. Bell, can you tell me where the Helena Ravens played? And I think that's where that photograph was taken.
It was taken in a field next to the ballpark. It was a makeshift ballpark, which Beauchamp just did everything. He brought tractors in, he brought the levels in, and just made a park. But I first started playing down on the south end where I was raised, on the south end, where they had built 2 parks on that south end. We had a Pony League Park and we had a Little League Park. Okay, and your father, Mr. Hammond, was one of our sponsors. And we had, it was just a big thing, because we had the north side was the white park, and the south side was the black part. So that's where we mostly did our playing down there. And I had people that I just looked up there. Well, you can see here, babyface me. I was about 13 or 14 on this picture. Dr. Gaines and Ollie, like Ollie said, he was in the big league, but Dr. Gaines was one of the actual players on the Ravens team. And I was so short, I almost did not reach his, just a little under his shoulder. You know, I was just a little fella. They called me, at that time, was Little Campanella, because I could shag the ball among the best of them. And like you say, I was self-taught, because I could just look at them and see how they were doing things, and that's how I wanted to do things. And I just followed in their footsteps. We had really 4 major teams, little league teams that were here and at that particular time, which was Mr. Hammond sponsored one of the teams. We had the Helena Merchant, West Helena Merchant, Chicago Mill, and we didn't want to call it the Helena Social Club team, but Mr. Hammond gave it a name, but he was the sponsor. I mean, he took care of us. I mean, the in and the outs and the in. He did it clear up to classroom, because most of us that played ball, we were in Mr. Hammond's class. And so, you know, we had to act right.
Well, tell me this, who did you all play? I guess I want to take you back a little bit more. What teams did you play? Where did they come from? Did you travel?
The only time that I can remember we traveled, we went to Elaine and Clark.
Millwood had a team. All these little towns had a team. Rashaw, Rondo. You know, just everybody had a team, and that's the only thing was really going back in the day was baseball. Mm-hmm. And about every little town you go to, they was trying to play baseball. But see, it happened to be, Bochange was the type of man that he make money off from. He had a gate. He charged at the gate, see, to get in. It wasn't just like an open field. He charged to get in, and he'd have these different teams to come in and play. They had I don't know if y'all remember the Helena Seaporters over here. They didn't have any blacks playing with them. They had a white team here in this town, 1948. A white team, the Helena Seaporters. But they had most of the players that played with us at Lexington in 48 was from Helena Eagles. They were black. They had a black team over here named Helena Eagles. But I don't know, now, Mr. Johnson was taking pictures of them, and he was taking pictures of all the high school, like he said, funerals and everything. He's a real popular man that we around. That's where I got to meet him, because I used to be down at Lakeview, and that's where his wife was from, Lou and them from down there. And I got to know him, and I don't know, he took a minute picture of me. I don't know where they are at today. Because when I was playing football and everything, he'd be at the school. He took all the high school pictures. And the Buccaneers was real popular. They was hard to beat. North Little Rock, by doing somebody would give us trouble because of Jones High School. Remember that?
Jones High.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Gaines, can you tell me a little bit about what was going on? I know you all were playing baseball, but can you tell us about the folks who came to the games, and what kind of atmosphere was it? And you all of you can chime in on this one.
It was absolutely entertaining. And being a young player, we had to make sure that we stayed away from some of the entertainment that was going on in the bleachers. You know, they had the white lightning. They were drinking the white lightning in the bleachers, and I remember the umpire was named Jack. Jack was drinking right along with him.
Yeah, the PA system, you know what his boy's name. You know he played with y'all. Stayed down there by the sawmill. He died. He needed to be on the radio announcing all the time. Well, they have time. Well, you talking about people be out there to be 300 and 400 people.
They would ask Jack. They
Yes,
said,
sir.
Jack, what is the strike zone? By the ninth inning, Jack said, from the top of your head to the top of your feet. And somebody would roll one in there, and Jack said, strike one. And that's when the fight started. It was, and everybody in the stands would just fall out because they were drinking that white light. It was entertainment. It was wholesome entertainment. On Sunday afternoons, we out of church and we go to the baseball park. And And us younger players, of course, we didn't participate, and the older players wouldn't let us participate in the drinking and all that because they kind of say, hey, y'all still on the high school basketball team, the high school football team, but they kind of sheltered us from that. But every little town you went into, right next to that little honky-tonk, right next, there was a baseball field out back. And one way in and one way out, you know, that kind of thing. But we played the Westbrooks from Mariana. We played a team from Mississippi. And I can tell you something else. The Birmingham Black Barons and all of those good players in the major leagues, they came through Helena.
Now tell us a little bit about, before you do, I think Mr. Bradley has something he wanted to say before we talk about some of those
I just
folks
want
that
to
came
tell
here to
this,
play.
when I was 16 years old, I never would forget it. Henry Roach was a man, he looked like he was white. And we had this team, we had several players from the Helena Eagles. We went over to Alligator Bow to play over there, and this on a plantation. And this white man said that, you niggas come in here, you ain't gonna leave out of here with this win. So they didn't know, I didn't start the game, but Mr. Roach, they betted some money. He brought me in the ninth inning, they had a man on first and a man on third. And I came in the ball game and I struck out 2 guys. And the next time I wound up, I threw to first base and the guy swung at home plate. That's the 3rd strike. The umpire called him out. That white man said, you niggas, that ball went to the home plate. The man behind the plate said, I ain't seen none of them anyway. We had to get out of town. I'm serious. This is true. They called the boy out. He swung because he thought I threw the ball home, but I threw it to first base. See, it sounded in that mitt like it come home. And the umpire said, I ain't seen none of them anyway, so he out. So I want to tell that fool I forget it. But you was talking about these guys, Willie Mays and Hank Aaron coming through here. You know, when they was playing the World Series in 1948 and things like that, they would bomb storm, you know, after the World Series, and everybody wanted to see the black ball players. So I was with the Memphis Red Sox in 1950 when they was in the guys in the major league like Jackie Robinson. So in Martin Stadium on a Saturday and Sunday, they'd have 20,000 people. You couldn't get in there. Only stadium that's black owned was the Memphis Red Sox, but they had the Kansas City Monarchs and Cleveland Buckeyes, Chicago, American Giants, Indianapolis Clowns. See, Ernie Banks played with the Kansas City Monarchs and Hank Aaron with the Indianapolis Clowns. But what had happened, when those guys got in the major leagues, see, when the season's over, like now the World Series, they'd get together and bring a team. And we play all over in the South, you know, play the team. The Negro League team would play the Negro Major Leaguers. And they'd come like here to Helena. You couldn't even get to the park because everybody
So
wanted
where
to see
did they
Willie
play
Mays.
when they came? What park did they play?
Down there, in this park down there over the left.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about they did, these Major League ball players, you know,
What
they used to have the college team used to come here, Mississippi State used to come here every year and play a game down here like they would play Ole Miss.
Okay, the one that's in North Helena.
Yeah, over
Oh,
11.
okay.
Over 11.
But they also played out here in this on 44.
Yeah.
We had to make the
All the 10 around.
Yeah, that
That's
park
right.
out there with the boat change had that 10 all the way right back there. I played that when I came back.
And a lot of times, and see, back in 1953, I was 7 years old, but hey, look at me. I hung with the guys. And I learned from the guys. We had, I remember times that when the college baseball players would come down, they would get a college all-star team to come down and try to beat us. They would have their little money together because we didn't have anything to do with that. We were just too young. All we had to do was, this young man over here, his name was Glad, all we had to do was to keep the ice in the number 3 tub so we all could drink some cold water. But we finally got in some games, but I learned hitting, fielding, and catching from this young man right here and that young man on the end. And they just don't know how much that did for me. And there's a lot of other ones that could talk to. We had a young man named Roy Williams. He went to Chicago, Illinois, and he made it to the AAA division. That's the next step to Major League. And I just don't know what happened, but he faded out. But also he picked up with Dr. Gaines and Mr. Bradley taught me, which is officiating. All three of us officiated. I never did get a chance to officiate a ball game with Dr. Gaines, but Mr. Bradley and I, we used to call all over the state. And you just be amazed how growing up in a white town, you got 2 blacks in town and they're on the floor.
See, they had integrated then, and then you started calling with these mixed teams, and you know, people a little leery think you're gonna cheat because if you play with all black schools like Mariana, but Mariana had some white, not many, but most of those schools would come like a Bryant and all that, they'd be all white. But now it's just common now. They don't face that. They don't have any problem with that anymore.
I remember a ball game with Mr. Bradley might not remember right now, but we went to Walden Ridge.
Oh yeah, oh man.
That I hadn't been officiating for probably about 3 years. Well, my mentor sitting here, he told me some things that I was going to hear. I was going to be pushed to a point and everything, but he taught me how to handle that.
Yeah, yeah.
He taught me how to handle that.
But cause
and I
you ain't
did.
gone, because they're going to somebody, nigga, they'll call you that back to the end of the minute. You can make a call, you know, they talk you. I know you done went through a lot of that stuff.
The baseball, though, you know, baseball, you have to pay your dues. It's like in anything else. You have to pay your dues. We played in the 10 parks where you run into the 10, you cut your arm, and all they did was got a handful of dirt and packed it in there. You know, we didn't have a first aid kit. We didn't have an athletic trainer, sports medicine, none of that stuff. We had dirt to put in there, and you get on back out there and play. So that's the way it was, and for some reason we forgot to tell our children and our children's children that baseball can be a stepping stone to something great and something better. But you gotta pay your dues. You gotta go out there in the summertime and play, even if you don't have a uniform. Play in your T-shirt and your shoes. We used to make a glove. We didn't have.
How did you make a
I had to
glove?
sew up. We had to sew. You know, pitchers like Ollie who could throw so hard. You know, you had to put rags or something in the middle of that glove because it hurts. But you leave after the game, your hand is almost bloodshot because of the fact that they could throw so hard. Leandre Shedd, probably one of the best baseball players I've ever seen in my life, played with Bo Changer right out here in this 10 Park. But he never got a chance to play in the major leagues simply because of, you know, he grew up at a time in history when we weren't allowed to play.
So, Mr. Bradley, how were you so lucky, or because of your talent, I'm sure, that you were able to advance to the major league?
Well, one thing, I was blessed to have a lot of good mentors when I was coming up. Then I was the type of person that I loved the game so well that I'd always give 100%. See, that's something I didn't learn until I got into professional baseball. I used to listen to different managers, you know, I played with several different teams. He would say, you know, like I have school practice, he'd look. He said, if you hit the ball to the shortstop and he throws the first base, you go down there and say 3-8. Just say 3-8. You know it's a show out. Then the next time you come up, you get a base hit, you go down there and 3-4. Then he's gonna let you know you don't hustle all the time. See, they write all that down. They look at what a man is really into it and getting all they got it all the time, way behind our head. And see, I was the type of person, if we be losing 20-0, I would get all I had, all the time. See, and I had several guys that tell me, no matter what you do, Brandon, they always watching you. If you're picking up chips, they watching you, somebody looking at you. So always be at your best. Don't be controversial, don't be hot-headed. Always listen. It might not be what you want to hear, but listen. You see, if you listen, you'll learn a lot. See, it's just like a lot of kids say, well, I flunked or so-and-so in class. But if he listen, he gonna learn something. But if he talking, he not gonna hear anything his teacher telling him. So I was the type of person that always a listener, whatever would be said. I went through a lot of tough times, but they always told me ain't nothing coming easy.
Right.
See, I've been mistreated like now. I had a lot of white people. And I was a deputy sheriff for 18 years. And I've had a lot of white people say, well, why do you treat the white people like you do the blacks same? I said, it don't make me any different. The only thing I want to be fair. You know, like I worked in the school as a security officer. black kids, you know, pushing the white kids up against the wall because they're outnumbered. I'd get the black kids and then I'd discipline. I said, look, hey, you don't do that. But they said, well, man, look like you with the white boy. I said, no, I'm for what's right, man. Look, you're not going to get anywhere bullying anybody.
So you're saying that the game of baseball, taught all of you discipline.
Yeah,
Right.
it taught me a lot. I learned a lot from it, you know, from traveling and meeting different people and listening to what people tell you. See, you don't get anything, it don't come easy. And I had a good mentor, everybody just like your daddy. It was surprising to me that he would just take me in. When I come from the country, a country boy, we didn't have nothing. My daddy didn't have nothing. We were uneducated. But he was educated. My brothers wasn't educated. Back in the day, see, I'm 83 and I was the youngest one. You can imagine about how it was back there in the 30s. See, what people knew. They didn't know nothing. So now I'm lucky enough to be able to go to school and finish high school and would have went to college, you know, if I hadn't got a chance in pro ball.
In your time in pro ball, did you have any violence directed towards you?
Oh yeah, let me tell you what happened. I mean, I can tell you some stories actually true. We was in Savannah, Georgia, and I was pitching on one Sunday evening. With nobody on the team black but me. This is in the 70s now. And one of those guys knocked one of our guys down. And the manager come out there and said, Brandon, look, I want you to put that ball in the man's side. We ain't gonna have no knockdown. We're gonna retaliate. I said, I can't do that. He said, you know what? I have you back in Arkansas picking cotton. Don't tell me what you can't do. Then knock that man down, and you gonna put that ball in his side. That's the way the game is played. I kicked around on the mound. This boy managed the Phillies now. The manager, he was the first baseman. He come over, he said, Brandon said, go on and hit the man. Said, we got your back. We ain't gonna let him get on top of you with all respect. I said, man, where am I gonna go? Ain't nobody there for white folks in the park. So I threw the ball over the man's head. And then here he come out there storming. He said, look, I'm gonna give you one more chance. He said, look, you do what I tell you to do. Don't I have a ticket for you this evening on that bus going back to Arkansas? My hair was tight on my head, I had hair on my head, then I didn't know what to do. I stood around them folks, nigga, you better not hit that white boy. Nigga, you better not hit that white boy in Savannah, Georgia. I wind up and throw and hit that white boy in the dugout, here they come. I took off the center field, they had a flag post, had a little narrow flag post. I went up on the top of that 8 feet they were fighting when I was up on top of that fence. That's true. I told man, I can't pitch no more. Now that's the way it was back there for blacks. You know, you knock a man down, you know, you have to retaliate. But they won't let you knock nobody down now. But back that end, they would throw it, hit you. And I went through a lot of experiences. They come on the bus, you know, I'd be on the bus. And some of the cities we ride the bus couldn't go in the cafe. I'm sitting on there eating chicken. Some of the white boys come out there and sit on the bus with me. They come out there, the other white people, them nigger lovers. They tell them white boy, you're a nigger lover, you know, because they're trying to protect me. It was hard for the blacks to get to where they are today. And football and all. See, they done opened up now. When they first started, they didn't want no black players.
The thing that that's my next question for Dr. Gaines and Mr. Bell. Were you paid to play for the Ravens?
No.
No. Okay, you were not. You did it because for the love of the game.
See, that was the difference then. See, blacks could play with blacks. See, you got to understand this. In that time and day, there wasn't no black players in the major league. That was out. We didn't ever think we were going to be able to play no white baseball. See, Branch Rickey was one man out of 32 teams, and they didn't have 32 teams then. I think they had about 16. And he said that I got a black ball player that I'm going to sign. And everybody said, you can't do that. You can't sign him. That's Jackie Robinson. You can't sign him. He was in the Army. He got out in 46 and came back to UCLA. And he said, I got a black ball player I'm going to sign. And all the other teams said, no, we're not going to play. So he signed Jackie Robinson and sent him to Montreal. That's in AAA. With nobody to talk to him and nothing. So he went up there and asked all the ball players on the team, who don't want to play and who don't want to play. He said, sign this, sign your name if you don't want to play. And they wouldn't. So they went on and played. So he brought Jackie Robinson up in 1947 to the Dodgers. With nobody to talk to him, with Pee Wee Reese, all the rest of them, you know, was back to him like this and wouldn't say nothing. The first day of the game they came out, he struck out. Man, they cheered. You could hear that ballpark, the park was just full. The next time up, he lined the ball off the wall. You could hear a peeing pole. Nobody say nothing. He standing on second. He stole third. The man, what did he save out? He said, I ain't seen that black nigga nowhere. And he stole home. This is true. In the major league, Jackie Robinson stole him. Y'all see his story?
It's
Yes.
But they didn't put all that in there. But Jackie Robinson, see, I played with him bomb storming. I know Jackie just like I know them, you know.
Explain what bomb storming is about.
That's when the major league was over. And they play exhibition games in the South, like in Greenwood, in Clarksdale, in Memphis. They did have a team playing the Negro League. The black major league ball players playing the black Negro League ball players. So I was fortunate enough to play the next 2 years after they started bomb storming. They didn't have enough pitchers to play against Mickey Mouse All-Stars, so they took me on their team with them, Willie Mays All-Stars. And I was one of the pitchers. I made more money in 2 months than I made in 3-4 years, because I was getting something like $1,600 a night. You know, the gate, they come in at the gate, and they give me the full salary, what they get. And then they send me the winter ball. I played winter ball down in South America in 1959 in Barranquilla. That's down there in Colombia. They call the place called Cartagena. People uncivilized. People out in the woods, skirts on, and like the wire. You know that, I could get the ball cannon, look like the ball cannon right on top of me down in Cartagena. Then I played in Venezuela. I played about 5 or 6 winter ball. They saw that they prospect the White Sox. They'd send me the winter ball, bring me back, send me the spring training with the White Sox. I stayed there the last day. They cut me and sent me to Indianapolis, AAA. And when the major league cut, they cut Indianapolis and sent me to AA. I played 17 years in the minor leagues.
I've been probably when he mentioned Greenville, Greenwood, Cleveland, and all those places. Well, all those places were black.
See, they come to the ball game. See, the people that never seen Willie Mays and them people, and they come to the ball game paying something like $10 a ticket. And they had me. See, they had Don Newcomb, Joe Black, and Connie Johnson, and myself pitching. We went over to Mexico and played 30 games over there in Mexico. You know, after the World Series, clean up December. I made something like $20,000.
I was like I say, I was
Because they were
young.
getting you a poor
I was very young, but I ended up, and I could hit. I could hit, and they finally told him how to get this little midget out. They said, throw him curveball. You gonna get out the way, or you gonna hit it, or it's gonna hit you.
See, I was in Little Rock last year. They called it the Southern Trail or whatever. Bill Clinton and Blanche Lincoln and all of them were there, and Holly Neal was there, a bunch of them. They had me over there to tell the story, how I came up in baseball. Some people actually cried when I told them about how I had to come up, and they saying, you look like a monkey, you're a baboon, all these kids. That's true. But see, they didn't know nothing about it because they ain't that age yet, in the 50s. I went in 1953, organized baseball. They had all that trouble in 1957 in Little Rock. I was in Eugene, Oregon that year. And when Martin Luther King got killed, I was in spring training down in 63. They were talking about they ought to kill that nigga and all that. I had to listen to all that. You be in the quarters where you live.
Right.
Well, it's something else. See, black players and went through something. These guys now ought to be proud that we paved the way for them. They got all the opportunities in the world, and half of them don't want to do nothing. Don't want to get an education either.
Well, what I wanted to bring you back around is, did you see baseball as being a way of a uplifting factor for this community during that era?
Yeah, it was, but I didn't have no idea that it would be like it is today. Back then, we just had hope. All it was black, see, because wasn't no white people involved, like integration. We didn't know nothing about no integration gonna be when I was going to school in Eliza Mill up in Holland. We never thought we'd have a white president, never dreamed of it. I mean, a black president back in the day. Because, see, we was brainwashed, my daddy came up on the plantation, he come out there and called him, this my nigger here. I thought I was a nigger too, till I got up 12, I didn't know no different what my parents taught me. It didn't affect me. Like now, they talking about the man that said he didn't want no blacks coming to the ball game, what his name, talking about the Sacramento Kings, they had that in there. But see, it wouldn't affect me like it was some kids the last 40 or 50 years, see, because they weren't used to that here and that, you either. But I've heard the word nigger, I was raised up coming up out of that, see? And it don't affect me as bad, but I don't want to hear it now. But back then, I didn't think nothing about it. I just said, well, my dad and mama let them call him nigger, I'm a nigger too. See, people didn't ask me that question, how did you feel back in the day? I felt good, because I didn't know no different. How could I feel?
Well, how can we, I know Dr. Gaines talked about doing the Arkansas State University exhibit about, I can't remember the phrase that you used, but how can we, how can baseball bring back some of the luster to this community? You had a term for that, Dr.
Yeah,
Gaines.
he would, yeah, he should.
What did you say? How can baseball, because right now in this community, there is a baseball team at Central. We have some baseball leagues, softball leagues, but they are primarily run by the majority people, but we are participating in them, and I understand that those young guys are being discriminated against. So what can we talk about how this baseball could become our future?
Well, baseball opportunities now are so different because baseball is part of the Arkansas Activities Association. And all kids have to do is go out for baseball, just like they go out for basketball, like they go out for track, soccer, and so forth and so on. They just have to go out for the team. And then if they go out for the teams now, they will get good coaching, how to run the bases, how to hit, they'll learn the game. Well, when I was growing up, I didn't know how to run bases. I didn't know. All I knew was, hey, if I hit the ball out of the park, I've got a home run. If I bunt the ball as fast as I am, I can get to first before they can throw me out. That was my mindset. But nobody ever told me how to hold, But now all this stuff is being taught. All these kids have to do now is just go out for the team. Go out for the team. So you don't have to have a stand, white lightning, and drinking and playing with the older, because you don't have that, that group anymore. But the opportunities now to play baseball and get to the major leagues and get to the college teams, that's what our kids are missing out on. You can't afford to go to college anymore. Everybody's on some kind of scholarship. And baseball is a sport where you don't get hurt. You just don't get hurt.
Well, can you see how your stories can probably be a positive force in influencing some of the young men and women, well, the young men primarily, to go into baseball because...
Well, you said young men and young women.
Yeah,
you saw
right.
last week.
Oh, the young ladies.
Yeah.
Dynamic,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let me say this to you. But what you were saying, I think what you were saying, is it something causing the blacks not to play baseball now? It's left up to them. It's wide open. And see, when I came along, it wasn't no way. They didn't want you there. There nothing you could tell them. So you had to fight to get there. Now it's wide open. We done opened the place up wide open. If a young man want to play baseball today, he got all the privilege. They looking for him. For an instant, I knew when they said on a football team, a black boy could not play quarterback.
Right.
They begging for him now in every college because
Right.
they mobile. See how things have changed?
Right.
But back in the day, it wasn't no such thing as no black quarterback. Some of these colleges still a little hesitant by using the black, but every one you go to now, every conference you're in, they got 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and they are winning. So they were learned that they were ignorant to the fact. I had a lot of white people to tell me, my grandparents were ignorant to the fact, admitted it to me, that how you all was treated. You're only a human being, ain't no different.
One thing our kids have to do now, our parents have to do now, and our men in the community have to do now. We have to volunteer. We have to volunteer when those kids are very young. When they're 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years, we gotta be out there volunteering. Because when it's time for them to go out for the high school team, because they're so far behind with regard to skill development, they will not be able, they'll be embarrassed to go out for the high school team. And so we've got to volunteer and go out there and find a lot somewhere and clean it off and teach those kids how to run the bases and not go out there cursing and using profanity, but just going out there teaching them basic skills that they're going to have to be proficient in. They can go out for the high school team and feel like they can make the team.
That's what I was
That's
looking
what
for.
that's what we got to volunteer. We got to have some boat chinches, boat chinches up to date.
But
Another thing about that is J.R. House right
I
now.
wanna ask you all a point. I'm really serious about this in Mariana. In Mariana, we losing our high school. It used to be one of the best high schools in 75 states, had more kids go to college. Now, the state took it over. And I talk to the people all the time, I say, it's not the school, parents, it's you. You are not teaching your kids to hit those books. They take them and bring them right here to Helen to kill. And they all together different. No problem at all. Why they can't do that in Mariana? I asked parents, I'm going to send them to KIP. I said, why they can't go to school in Mariana? What's wrong? We got teachers from America, educated, but they go out there and just act up, fight. Wear their
That's a
clothes
whole
off.
nother
You know,
story,
they come
Mr.
down
Webb.
here, and
That's
I've
a
asked
whole
that question
nother
100
story.
times.
It's
Nobody
not-
want to answer.
It's
I know what you're saying.
It's not only Mariana. It's in
My
Alabama.
my girls called me, they cried. They said, Daddy, what is wrong with our school? They graduated first and second in their class and went to college. All of them got master's degrees and doing good. I know numbers of kids. Rodney Slater from there. I just name you numbers from Mariana. But they people now talking about, oh no, this school isn't good. We want to kill.
Well, that's a whole, and I would love to have that discussion with you, but
I don't
I know,
But did you
yes.
not know, okay,
Know what you
just like J.R. House here, you got to go out there and give your time to those young men. Help them. Help them like they bring them up now to a system they call drafting, okay? But if I got a son, oh yeah, they do it. It's been done ever since J.R. House been there. They draft the young men from Pee-wee, from, what you call it, when you put the ball on.
I know they
Pee-wee.
They go to
From
university.
T-ball.
from T-ball all the way up, they are drafted, okay? And the only way that they can get on the different thing, their fathers volunteer. You got a father and you are 5 or 6 years old, they're going to volunteer because they want their son to play. I'm going to teach my son everything, okay? Your son play with my son, but that's how it's done. So you got to volunteer. You got to volunteer. I have done that.
But let me just take it back before we, because there are a couple more questions before we end. Why do you see, will it be beneficial if the African American community would bring back our own teams, our own softball or baseball teams? Do you think that would
Really, I think we'd be going back. I think it should be like it is now. It's integrated. Everybody has a chance, regardless of what color. That's what I think. See, but you can't go back. See, white people really had the money. You know that. See, we got to realize that. And blacks, when they went out of business, Negro League, because they did not have enough money to operate like the major leagues. So now everybody wants to make a decent salary. Those guys are making something like $40 million and all that. Ain't no black organization gonna have that. But they supports the team, black and white. See what I'm saying?
Well, when I think about the national champions now, the Jackie Robinson team out of
Well, see,
Chicago.
with that, did you see the Little League team that year? That's
that's the
rare.
one.
That was rare. And everybody in the country supported that 110% to see those kids coach like they were. They played great, although they lost. I was proud of them.
I guess what I'm saying is that we need to maybe nurture the little ones so that they can have opportunity to maybe be a stepping stone for them if we work within our confines of our own community before they go to the broad.
You got to get past some things. You still have. See, we can have churches. We can have church leagues.
Right, that's what I'm talking
We
about.
can have church leagues.
Right.
But you have some churches that say we can't play ball on Sunday. So you got to get past. You got to get past that. But you got to give some time to you. Find a way. Find a way. These kids don't have to go all the way to Blythe. They don't have to go all the way to. If you had enough church leagues right around here, where they can compete, and then go out for the high school team go out, and the high school will take them to Wynn and take them to Forest City, Fayetteville, and so forth and so on.
That's what I'm
So
talking
that's-
about.
So we just have to come up with a strategy to help our kids. You know, one church may not have enough to have a baseball team, so you could, two churches could go together and say, hey, we're gonna have a team, and two others could. We just want to play. The only way you get better is play.
Right. And
You're not gonna become a good baseball player, a good basketball player, a good football player unless you play. It's just that simple.
And I like that concept in the fact that, because I would like to see the names of those. I want to get all the names of those teams so that if the community can get together, we can organize these church or organization baseball teams. We can use those names, and so that becomes a part of our legacy. Because if it had not been for Johnson's photographs, you all wouldn't be here today. I never would have known. I never knew to what extent my father was involved, Elton Hammonds was involved in this whole baseball story until we were researching the photographs, and I took him home and I said, Daddy, do you recognize anybody there? And then he started recalling that, and that's when I called James Bell, and ultimately, and then he talked about you all the time, Mr. Bradley. Then I called Dr. Gaines. So Rogeline Johnson is definitely the reason why we're here today.
I can tell you
Well, I
another
can say
thing.
something. Go ahead.
I can tell you another thing. We left out another important name that worked with Mr. Johnson. His name was Marcus Wiley.
And who was Marcus Wiley?
He was a bus driver and he owned a cleaning.
Yeah, had a cleaners and
yeah,
cleaners on the car line.
On the car line. Yeah. And now I'm only 7 and 8 years old, you know, and it's just mind boggling, you know, and you know,
Well,
to be sitting here sharing all this.
To be honest, Ollie had some of the boat change spirit in
In him.
him. He gave back. He built a stadium out
Yes,
in Southland,
let's talk
just
about
like
that.
the stadium that we had on
Boat
down
Change.
on Highway 44. He
Right.
built that stadium out there. I played in it one time, but we've got to have a spirit of giving back,
Yes.
giving time to our young people, making sure that the community is better than we leave it. You know, we've got to give back. We can't expect other folks to coach our children and
Yes.
teach our children in the formative
Yes.
years.
Yes.
Now, when they get up to the high school level where coaches are being paid, they're going to play the best players because they have to win if they want to stay there.
Yes.
But you know, we've got to get our kids through those formative years and keep them playing and keep them in wholesome activities. Once they learn to participate and enjoy wholesome activities, we cut down some of the other stuff. You know, instead of being on the street at night, we're playing a baseball game tonight. So it's something that we gotta, as men and women, we've got to give back. We've got to give back to our kids.
Now, I know you won't be able to do this, but over at Clarksdale, Mississippi, Hank Aaron got a complex over there for blacks. You should see it. Baseball. Got 4 fields. Little League, Pony League, got girls softball and all, and then got basketball in Clarksdale. Now he
I never knew
dedicated,
that.
yeah, to Clarksdale. Hank Aaron did. It's over at Hank Aaron's field. It's beautiful. Got a whole section there. See the white lake up in Jonesboro? Like
Yeah,
got.
yeah.
Now they talked about that one time out there at Southland. I was gonna just let them have the land to put a complex out there. It'd been good, you know. But most of the whites, they were a little leery about it because it'd been blacks, you know, involved. So that's what you're saying. But they went to J.R. House. But they'll let the blacks come there and play. They can play. They welcome to go there and play. But most of it is white. But it's a white owned.
Right,
You know
and
what I'm
that's
saying?
what I'm saying. Can we, as a result, this is what it started off with us looking at Mr. Johnson's photographs and the legacy that he left here, and thank God he photographed the teams, because otherwise folks like me wouldn't realize the rich history. The next step is now we're looking toward the future. How can we build our complex? You have I can drive out to South after Lexa and I can still see some of the the frame of your baseball field. Okay, and how can we could have an Ollie Brantley complex out there, and how can we get them? And each of you all could have teams named for yourself because you paved the way. Now that's what I would like to see happen. And what we want to do is we're going to have to end this interview, but I think this is the beginning of how can we strategize to make some of this happen.
You know, if you just think about it, just look at the larger community. They don't have to have a baseball stadium for kids that
For the little
at a
ones.
certain age.
Uh-huh.
They just, we didn't, this area right here, this was not a baseball stadium. It was a corner of a lot out here on Highway 20.
Yeah, Highway 20, yeah.
And out there at Chicago Mill, it was nothing but a field out there.
Yeah.
And we went out there and measured it off and put bases around there. You don't have to have all this fancy stuff, the uniforms. You know, we didn't have uniforms and pretty gloves. We had T-shirts and short pants. But if you really encourage them, somehow they got to become motivated, self-motivated.
And informed about baseball.
That's right. They are informed by basketball. They're informed by football. But we got to make them just find a way to push that button that would encourage them to play baseball. Baseball is played outside and it's hot. I'm gonna lay up on the couch and I'm gonna play my, you know. So we've got to get past.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset.
Well, I think that this is the, we were talking about the past, but we're also looking into the future. And by bringing you three young men together has really been a dream of mine after I saw the first photograph 10 years ago, as a matter of fact. Before we end, I want to know just a little bit more about, I call him Bo Shank or Bo. Can you tell me just a little bit more about him? Describe him, his character, and how much he meant to you, gentlemen, as you all were playing
Well, really,
the game.
to tell you, I think Bochange was in it just like any guy. He was in it for the money part. He wasn't in it, just say for the welfare of the ball players. He was looking for a personal gain.
Entertainer.
Yeah, personal gain.
Entertainment.
I don't think he was an educated man where he would know how to motivate kids and see for them to go further. He just looking at today.
Okay.
You took your own chances by playing.
Yeah.
He would get a contract with Clarksdale. You pay me so much to bring my team over there. We'll pay you so much when you bring your team over here. As players, we didn't know about the money, and we just wanted to play. We wanted to play, and the thing I liked about Bochange was he was the one that provided the opportunity to play.
Provided the opportunity.
He didn't go to college and learn how to hit and how to run the bases and how to throw. He didn't know any of that stuff, but he did know that there was a need for baseball and entertainment in our community, and he saw it as an opportunity for him to make a few bucks off of it, and rightfully so.
And do you know what that means? I still don't know today that was that Bochank land or was that somebody else's land that, but it took Bochank to do it. He had the tractors out there. I'm 9, 10, 14 years old, but I'm looking at all this, okay? For some strange reason, he and Doris Lee got together.
So his story still needs to be told.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, none of us know why we made it and others didn't make it. We don't know why the Lord placed Bochange there instead of but we know that some of us took on his spirit and we tried to give back.
That's very good.
He took on his spirit and he tried to give back. And we also know that he provided us with an opportunity not to have to go to the field and pick cotton and chop cotton. He provided us with an opportunity to play a sport that will take you and pay your tuitions, pay your way through school if you just learn how to play this sport. He didn't go to college, but somebody placed him in that position to you know, the Lord just, he put angels in our path, and I can't help but think that he was an angel for baseball in our path. Had he not had that baseball park out there, whether he was making something out of it or not, we wouldn't have had a chance to play. So if we don't go out and do this, take on his spirit and do some things for kids, they may not have it. All of them not going to have the opportunity. You know, I didn't go to college on the baseball scholarship, even though he provided the opportunity. I went on a football scholarship. But so what? You know, it'll pay your way. It'll pay your way. I didn't get a chance to play in the majors because I was ahead of my time. I couldn't sign a professional baseball contract with the Kansas City Athletics because I was on a football scholarship. But now you can be on a football scholarship and play Major League Baseball. The rules have changed now, so you can play a professional sport and still stay on your scholarship in college. So we have to keep everything in perspective with regard to the times in which we came along.
And I can say this, when I had a baseball park out there in Lexington, I know 6 kids that I know got a scholarship. This boy from Johnson had his boys coming down from Memphis, and I got him at UCA. That's where my girl went to school, UCA. And I know the manager over there, and he said he wanted some black ball players. They had a first baseman and outfielder made a team over there. First time they ever had any black. They came from out that south.
And I'll tell you another person that Ali has forgotten about, but he asks me all the time when he calls here. His name is Bradford. His name is Bradford. Ali gave money out of his pocket for this young man to go to Ouachita University.
That's right.
And he would come home every summer and we play ball together. His mother was named Ali Bradford.
Well, you know what?
They had several boys over there at the school last year I tried to get to go. They were pretty good ball players over at Central.
Yeah.
I don't know where they went to. Good ball players.
So, Steve, what do you think about this story that we've heard today, and if it, how your father legacy is living on, and
Well, I'll say this. You never know the power of a portrait. It brings back memories. It awakens a mind. And it can also be an inspiration to others in the future to look back and see what others have done. And it's right here locally. It's telling a story. It's giving the history. It's giving the Helena another boost of life to know their past. And that's the power. That's the power of a portrait. It brings back memories. It captures a moment.
So we can't have a future without having a past.
And understanding it.
Now, before we end, gentlemen, I would like for you to tell us again your name and where your future or your profession after baseball. So, starting with Dr. Gaines.
I'm Wilbur Gaines. Have not always been Dr. Gaines. I started baseball here. In fact, Mr. Johnson, I remember him when he was a basketball coach at Lakeview High School. And I played at Eliza Miller. That was my first interaction with him. And he was always such a kind man with such a kind spirit. And it's only fitting and appropriate that he would be the person who put together these portraits and things like this. So I played baseball, basketball, because I promised the Lord when I was in King Ferry, New York, at age 14, if you allow me to get back home, I'll go out for football, basketball, track, sing in the choir, and join church. If you give me a chance to get back home, and I went out for every sport, and I was always intrinsically motivated. If a coach said run, I said how fast. Jump, I said how high. Because I was motivated because of the work on the farm. I didn't want to go back to the field. I didn't want to go back picking more cotton. So baseball, basketball, track and field, they gave me an opportunity. And the Lord put Coach Mike Somerville from Philander Smith College came down and offered me a football scholarship to Philander Smith College. And I went to Philander, and the basketball coach, they found out that I was an all-state basketball player, so I played basketball with Guy Salisbury, who we later played with the Globetrotters. And of course, Elijah Pitts, who played with the Green Bay Packers, and I was drafted to play with the St. Louis Football Cardinals. But when I was supposed to have gone with the Cardinals, they had filled out quota. I didn't know what quota meant at the time, but they had filled out black quota. So I've always felt like I was a year ahead of my time because Elijah Pitts was 1 year behind me, and he went to the Green Bay Packers. And so when I left college as a football player, I became the high school coach, basketball coach in Marion, Arkansas. And from that, I decided I would go into officiating when I was offered an opportunity to teach at the college level. And after teaching at the college level for a while, I officiated NCAA Division I basketball and wanted to make the NBA. But the NBA went back to 2 officials rather than 3 officials, and I said I'll never make it to the NBA, so I decided to go and work on my doctorate. I went to Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, and that's where I got a doctorate degree from, and I came back and finished my career at Arkansas State University.
Okay. Mr. Brett.
So I'm Ollie Brantley. My career when I first started out in baseball, after I finished the baseball, I went into law enforcement. Worked as a deputy sheriff in Lee County for 30 years. I got, when I was playing baseball, they gave me full time. When I come home in October until February, they gave me full time for the whole year. So that made me have the 30 years when I retired. And then I started with the schools, working with the schools as a security officer, and I retired this year, this past June.
James Bell III, and no college, college experience because I went into law enforcement also. I'm a former Arkansas Highway Police and also deputy sheriff, auxiliary deputy sheriff, and a sports official for over 30 years. So I had a lot to do with a lot of young men, not only black men, but all men. And that makes me feel good.
Well, I want to thank all 3 of you all for participating in the documentary for the photography legacy, You Looking Good, commemorating, remembering Rogeline Johnson Sr. And you have shared the past with us, and you have given us some powerful information in regards to the future. So again, thank Dr. Wilbur Gaines, Ollie Brantley, Mr. Ollie Brantley, and Mr. James Bell for being a part of our history of the Arkansas Delta. And in my mind, you are Arkansas Delta greats. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
This was fabulous.
It's fantastic.
man, I'm
Steve,
This man, young man.
How good, man. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. Boy, you looking good. Help me out at you, yeah. We'll be
Hey, but I'm still
same to you, man. We'll be
So,
coming
Steve,
down
what did
Berkeley
you do?
Holiday.
Come on. My wife and I in the gym every morning.
Oh,
Yeah, we work out every
do you all
morning.
Y'all
want
got
to
a
eat
good football
lunch?
team
Want
up
us
there.
to
Yeah,
take
too.
you all to lunch?
No, we
Oh,
got.
man, we
All
fine.
this restored
We're gonna do some things while we're here. I've got to.
What I want to do is some point, especially when we open up the exhibit in Pine Bluff, we're going to want you all to come there. We're going to figure that all out. That's going to be in November.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about how we can kind of get everybody motivated. We got a lot of things we need to work on.
Oh, don't mention.
I think that we need to do something. And I mean, y'all made my dream come true.
I was just saying, I was impressed with all of you.
Oh, is that right? Well, I'll tell you
And what
what.
we're going to do is we're going to have a little snippet of this in the photography exhibit. But Dr. Gaines, because we're going to write this story, okay?
Okay,
We're
we.
going
yeah.
we're going to make a book.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll.
Be. And I wanted to hear your history. I mean, you guys, that was wonderful.
Well,
You know who that is right there?
We're going to make a book. Have you done
Robert
story
Martin.
show?
So what
Have
night?
you done your
Robert
story yourself?
Oh, yeah. I've did several stories. I'm always going somewhere.
But I'm
Yeah.
not talking
Those are both
about in
in
writing.
Oh, yeah, they got that. I told you go to Google.
I know